Well, good morning. It's great to be here. It's obviously a very nice facility. We need to start seeing some activity at this facility, and that's part of the reason why we're here today. If you look at today's unemployment numbers, the national unemployment rate is 6.2%. The state of Florida is 4.7%. But that's a 4.7%, which is much better than anyone predicted we would be at a year ago. But that's a 4.7% where we have one of our major industries that has been idled by the federal government for over a year, the cruise line industry. And so we're here today to talk about a way forward for the cruise industry. We think it's very, very important. Obviously, we have a number of seaports throughout the state. It's more of an integral role in some ports than in others. So, for example, here, this is a critical, huge part of what this port is doing. It's important in other ones, but you have some that have a lot of cargo and everything that's still been able to go throughout COVID. But we need to be able to get these cruise lines operating again. And if you look at what's going on around the country, but particularly in Florida, you know, we've vaccinated, we're going to be at 3.5 million seniors soon that have gotten shots. It's going to be like 75, 70. I don't even know with the demand how much higher you're going to be able to get at that point, but certainly it's going to be available. We're going to go 40 and above starting on Monday, anybody eligible 40 and above. And then the next week, any adult will be eligible to get any of these vaccines. And so if you look at kind of what we've been doing, I mean, just with initial doses, we're knocking out 110. On Tuesday, we did 133,000 initial doses. That's J&J or the first dose of Pfizer and Moderna, and that's not even fully reported yet. So we're going through this. As the supply increases, we'll be able to provide it to people. And that's something a year ago people said wasn't possible. So we see that. Obviously, this thing has been around for a year, COVID has. There's immunity in the population from infection. That's something that's very, very real and lasting. And so the combination of those two things really give us the opportunity to bring everything back. Now in Florida, you know, we have everything going on except the cruise lines because the federal government won't let the cruise lines sail. The CDC won't let them sail. You know, they did the no sail order in March of 2020. You know, a week before they did that, you had people saying, oh yeah, you can go on a cruise, just if you're older, maybe not. And then all of a sudden it had to stop entirely. And it's just never been to the point where they're making an effort to really get it back in an effective way. You know, they did do this provisional order in October, but it was something that was totally unrealistic in terms of being able to do. So we're here because these are important parts of our state. The jobs are very, very important. And it's not just people that work for the cruise industry. I think you're going to see today with some of the folks that we'll introduce, this has a ripple effect throughout all kinds of small businesses, mom and pop operations that service the cruise industry. So when they're sailing, there's more economic opportunity for people across a wide different range of businesses, and it affects a lot of jobs. So and the Attorney General's here. She'll talk about some of the things that we've been discussing. What we need is a way forward. And I think you'll hear from some of the crews today that you can't just say, okay, you can start sailing, and then they just start sailing. Like, this is a big logistical operation. It takes time to be able to do it. I know a lot of them, we were working last year to try to get them sailing by now, and for whatever reason, the CDC wouldn't go there. But we're looking at making sure all these ships can sail in the summer. It's really, really important. And here's the thing, if you say they can't sail in the United States, people are still going to be taking cruises. Instead of flying to Orlando or here or Fort Lauderdale or wherever you would go to be able to feed into a port, you'll have people fly to the Bahamas. They'll be sailing from the Bahamas. They'll be sailing from other places. So the activity is not really going to be any different. It's just going to be detrimental to states like Florida that have so many people that depend on this industry for their livelihoods. And so we think we're in a position where we absolutely need a way forward. We also have to come to grips with, is it okay for the government to just idle an industry for a year with no end in sight? I mean, this was never legislated by anybody. Nobody elected ever made. This is a bureaucracy that's made this decision. And is there really no recourse? And put aside cruise, is this something that we want to see go on in the future? I don't think you can just indefinitely shutter major businesses and cost all these jobs. So we want a way forward. If you noticed, in all the different CARES Act and everything that was done, they didn't provide anything for any of the seaports. And so obviously we had a lot that were really affected. So when we got the most recent stimulus with the state money, part of what I've recommended the legislature do with that is use about $260 million to provide support for Florida's seaports. And we basically just totaled up the losses through February and arrived at that. Unfortunately, I mean, there's probably going to be more, especially if we can't get the ships going. And so this money will help support, but it is not going to be enough if we can't get the ships to sail. So that's what we want to do. And if you look here at Port Canaveral, the second leading cruise port behind Port Miami, it's reported an estimated loss of $86.7 million over the course of the pandemic. And again, there's really not much they could have done about it given what's going on. So we're in a situation where you have this conditional sale order. There hasn't been a single cruise line that's completed even phase one of the 4-phase plan. The CDC hasn't updated any of its findings with current data to justify the lockdown of this industry. And you know, this cruise industry, from the very beginning, when this came, there was an outbreak on this Diamond Princess. That was kind of one of the main things. And so the cruise industry was focused on, and they were trying to figure out, okay, well, what do we need to do? What do you do this? And then they did the no sale. So then they're like, okay, we got to figure out a way back. And so they've been working on this for months and months and months to try to prepare for this. But they've just been blocked by the CDC every step of the way. So people are right now cruising in other countries. You know, you have this as being done in the Mediterranean and other places, and I know some of the folks from the industry can talk about that. And of course, we have all kinds of stuff going on, and not just in Florida, where we're probably the most robust state in the country in terms of options for people. But you know, we have people flying on airplanes, they're on buses, hotels, restaurants, theme parks, casinos, bar, you name it. All this stuff is gone, but somehow the cruise is viewed as differently. So we want a way forward, and we're all united here to say we need a way forward. So I want to hear from some of these folks, have a discussion, and then hopefully get a decision, give them a date where they can go so they can plan and be ready to go. And I can tell you, we'll put a lot of people back to work in this state if we're able to do it. So I would like to turn it over to the Attorney General.
Thank you, Governor. And many of you know I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. I have never been more proud to be a Floridian as I am right now, especially under the leadership of this governor, who is not a governor that sits in his office and puts his feet up on the desk and makes decisions on high. As you can see right now, he is in the details, meeting with the folks that are affected, not only the cruise industry folks, but those that support the cruise industry, the florists, the caterers, the transportation workers. All of these folks are Floridians just trying to provide for their families. This governor has been focused on how do we balance the health and safety of our communities with Floridians' right to make a living and provide for their families. So proud of this administration and really glad to be here today to hear how Florida and these businesses are affected by the federal government's decision to lock down a whole industry, which, if we're playing by the orders that are in place now, could be a year and a half. And so this is an extremely important meeting as we gather facts and information that we will use here in the state of Florida, that my office will evaluate with the governor to determine how we'll proceed forward. You know, we take our function and our role to protect Floridians and their rights very seriously. It's something that we consider every single day. And sometimes that means we have to push back against our own government, who is overreaching or acting outside their scope of authority that we the people have given them. And when you're sitting among a folks that has been idle for this long, under orders that we cannot see in the foreseeable future that are going to allow us to get back to work, we've got to start examining some very serious options. And so that's why we're here today. As you know, Florida is #1 in the nation for cruises. Over 60% of embarkments start here in Florida. So you can imagine the impact that this has on our economy. I'm here today to listen, to hear how this has impacted not just the cruise lines themselves, but the businesses, the longshoremen, the others that are helping facilitate these cruises. We are asking that there be technical guidance that is given that would allow these ships to resume. And it's important that we start examining how we can push for a sooner rather than later resumption of this incredible, important industry. So thank you for being here today. I know it's a lot to ask on a work day to be here and take the time, but it's incredibly important as we examine all options and determine what our legal avenues are to push back against this government overreach into an industry that is so vitally important to the success of this state.
Great. All right, Kevin Tebow, Florida Department of Transportation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again, Governor. Thank you, Governor, for your steadfast commitment to provide a vibrant transportation system for the state of Florida. And Captain Murray, great facility that you have here. It's a beautiful facility. So under the Governor's leadership, the state has made key investments in our transportation network, keeping our state moving and ensuring that goods make it to market during the pandemic. By maximizing the lower traffic conditions, the Governor recognized an opportunity to leverage those critical investments in our transportation infrastructure, but that yielded the greatest return by accelerating close to 50 transportation projects throughout the state, valued at several billions of dollars, ultimately benefiting every single person in every part of the state. And as the Governor mentioned just last week, he outlined his recommendations for the best use of those funds from the American Relief Plan. And beyond the $260 million that he mentioned going to the ports, he also proposed another $930 million for the Department of Transportation in our work program. Again, noticing and recognizing the important factor that the transportation network has for moving people and goods throughout the state. But as you heard, just because of the CDC's no-sail order, the members of our communities who are in this industry, who are directly impacted by the inability for the cruise ships to sail, they're still struggling. And it'll take many, many months for that industry and those communities to recover. You don't have to go far to see the lasting impact. Just look around the port where we are today. Beautiful facility, but it's empty, entirely empty, other than us here today. Florida is well known as the cruise capital of the world, sending more than close to 9 million passengers. And the top 3 cruise ports in the world are right here in Florida, with Canaveral being one of them. So just recently, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of statistics, as you had mentioned, General, about some of the numbers. September 2020 report from the Federal Maritime Commission estimated that during the first 6 months of the pandemic, losses in Florida due to the cruise industry shut down totaled over $3 billion in economic activity, including 49,500 jobs, paying over $2 billion in wages. Think about that. More than 49,000 of your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues out of work. And that was just the first 6 months, and here we are a year later. So from the travel agents to those that support the ships when they come into port, to those at area hotels and restaurants, each of them are impacted by the sole decision of the CDC. Families are suffering. In addition to these vital people, the economic impact is staggering. So think about the activities that occur on a cruise ship, for example. Dining. Right? Restaurants on land have been open with no issues. Entertainment. Theaters are now reopening and have put in appropriate safeguards to protect their customers. Hotels. Hotels have been open for quite a long time now. Again, providing the necessary sanitation and controls in place on behalf of their customers and their visitors. So what's the difference when we have these opportunities on land, but we want to put them on sea? So the governor of the state will continue to do all that he can to help those members of our communities, again, regain their livelihood, and hope our federal counterparts will follow suit. Thank you again, Governor, for having me here today. Thank you for your leadership and for fighting for Floridians in this essential industry.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Captain John Murray, CEO of Port Canaveral.
Governor, thank you for coming to Port Canaveral with the Attorney General and the Secretary today. We can't thank you enough for taking on this leadership role with the CDC. This has been a long year. It's been a very particularly tough year for Port Canaveral and for our port tenants and everybody that's related to the cruise industry here at the port. Cruise represents about 80% of our book of business and 80% of our revenue stream. And for the last year, it's been particularly hard at Port Canaveral. We had to go through a reduction in force of our own team of 43%. It was a very difficult time for us. We have people that are totally dedicated to the cruise industry that are still unemployed, and they're just waiting to come back to work. Most of the folks that did work here are ready to come back. They want to work at the port. This terminal is really a unique example of what's happened in the past year. We financed this terminal ourselves with bonding, bank money, and cash from operations. $155 million facility. We've been paying the debt on it since we financed it over a year ago. We haven't had one revenue dollar through here yet. It's a state-of-the-art facility, as you can see, and it's really tough to have an asset like this on the books and be paying the bills and not have any of the revenue. So we really need to get back to work. It's time. I've been saying this repeatedly in our commission meetings, and we've got one agency that has us shut down, and we really appreciate your leadership in taking this on. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, you go back to last March, the concern and the rationale for doing things like no sail was that, our health system would be overwhelmed by corona patients, and that was the overwhelming of hospitals. And look, that was based on, some legitimate concerns. It was also based on some very faulty academic models that were just so wrong. But nevertheless, you could argue be safe than sorry. Well, now we're at the point where obviously you're not going to have these hospitals overwhelmed. I mean, it hasn't happened anywhere in the country in terms of not being able to treat patients. I mean, some got very busy in certain parts of the country. We had some in our state that got pretty busy over the summer in particular. But it seems like the rationale for these continued lockdowns of cruise industry and then some of the things other states are doing is not to prevent hospital overrun, but to just have no case, like 0 cases. That's not possible to achieve, and you end up destroying people's lives trying to achieve it. And so that's never been a valid basis to restrict people. And so we need to say we're going to be fine. I can tell you in Florida last year, I didn't know if the cruise lines are going to have a bunch of sick patients, how that would affect my hospitals. I have no concern about that at all. It's not going to be an issue here. And so we got to go forward, I think, understanding you can never have any activity that has absolutely 0 risk at all. And we do things every day that has risk, not having nothing to do with COVID. We don't even think twice about it. And I kind of feel like they're looking at the cruise line saying, well, somebody could potentially do. That's not a valid reason to stop it. They're going to create good environments. People are going to be able to make their own decisions. And that's really how a free society has to operate. We want to hear from some of the other folks. So we have Jose Ramon Barrera, warehouse operator from the Polo Group. So can you introduce yourself, talk about what you do and how the no sale order has affected you?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your support. So I'm Jose. I'm the owner of the Polo Group. We are a 50-year-old family company passed down from my uncle to me. We operate about 300,000 square feet of warehouse space in Miami. Pre-pandemic, we were operating 24/7 with about 250 employees. Today, we have about 60 employees left. There is a lot of inventory that has been left, which is something that people don't think about, but we do have a ton of inventory left from when the ships stopped a lot of it bonded inventory that can only be exported, so it cannot be used for the domestic trade. And we have another problem, which is as a smaller company, we see NCA, Royal, all the big guys that have the option and the ability, and they've done a very good job at raising equity, raising debt. For us, it's a lot more difficult. We have to deal with the banks in a much different way. So that has created another problem for us. And basically, it's been 14 months of very, very little revenue, a lot of job losses, a lot of people having to be furloughed, let go, a lot of human capital lost. So we can't wait. We want to start. We are rearing for it. And thank you, Mr. Governor, for your help.
So if they're able to sail again, would you be able to add employees?
We will be right back to the pre-pandemic levels. Yep.
So you'd be at 275 employees just like that if they lift the no sail order.
Yep, exactly right.
Great. We also have Carlos Aguirre, Director of Operations, MSC Uniform. So can you talk about what you do and how you're affected by this no sail order?
Thank you very much for having me here today.
Can you maybe move that mic over just so he can get? Doesn't have to go. Yeah, perfect, right there.
Good morning. We're a small company based in Sunrise, Florida. 95% of our business is the cruise lines. We do about 8 of the bigger cruise lines. We do the whole uniform programs for them. Like everybody else here that's from the cruise lines, we've been affected. We used to carry about 60 employees with the 2 companies that we do, because it's a sister company. And after the pandemic, we only have about 10 employees now. We were able to move a little bit of production to make masks, and we sell it to the cruise lines, and so we're able to maintain a little bit to bring at least the 10 people or extra that we were able to bring back. But like everybody else here, we've been hit very hard. We have millions of dollars of inventory because it's custom made for the cruise lines, so it's not that I can turn around and sell it to anybody else, so we're just sitting there. And the same as them, we're just very wary. Finances are not there anymore. We have no movement, so we're just anxious to be able to come back. We had about 60 employees total with the 2 companies that we have, and at the time being, we just ready to go. We'll bring them back. They're hurting. I mean, they call me every day. Hey, you guys opening back? I heard the cruise is coming back, but until we don't go, I mean, there's nothing we can do.
But you would definitely be able to bring them back if the no sail order is lifted.
Yes, we're ready to go.
And if it's not lifted in the near future, what does that mean? What does that mean for the viability of your company?
We've been able to stretch out of our debt that we have with our suppliers. I mean, we produce a lot of stuff locally, and we do it in China. But then we're able to ease, the payment back of the debt. But now it's already a year and a half. What are we going to tell them? 2 years? We can't. We won't be able to survive anymore. 5 more months of this, 6 more months of this. It's going to be very tough. How to move forward?
Great. All right, Harry Summer, Norwegian.
Governor, I want to personally thank you for. Sorry about that. I want to personally thank. I don't know if that one's too close. Sorry about that. Governor, I want to personally thank you for your leadership throughout this pandemic. It's been absolutely outstanding, and your support of the industry and Attorney General, Secretary. I thank the 2 of you as well. When I hear the stories from Jose and Carlos, those are both companies that we work closely with at Norwegian. My heart breaks. I mean, these are partners of us for many, many years, and to see them suffer is just really incredibly sad. They are not just our vendors, they're our partners. We treat them as family, and during normal operations, we do very well together to support the economy in South Florida. We too suffer from an economic and jobs perspective. We employ a few thousand employees in our headquarters in Miami and our satellite office in Sunrise, Florida, and have had to lay off hundreds of them during this pandemic. And Governor, to answer your question in advance, if the no sail order was to be removed, we would be able to hire them back immediately and restore them at full pay, good paying jobs and careers that people have for years and decades with us. We want to bring them back, Governor. For us, we treat Health and safety, very important. As a company, we were proud to partner with our friends at Royal Caribbean to put together a healthy sail panel with former commissioners of the FDA, former directors of the CDC, real experts in infectious disease and other medical and scientific fields, to generate 74 science-based recommendations in order to allow for healthy sailing to continue. You mentioned in your introductory comments that we didn't just sit back and wait. We spend the months over the summer putting these recommendations together. And we're really excited that these recommendations were adopted by the entire industry. And cruise ships are now operating, as you mentioned, Governor, in many, many different areas in 10 separate regions of the world. Hundreds of thousands of guests have traveled on cruise ships throughout all these regions, and we've had no COVID outbreaks. None. Absolutely none. It is safe to cruise, Governor, and we are anxious to bring those protocols along with vaccines. You've done an incredible job, Governor, in vaccinating in getting vaccinated the most vulnerable population here in Florida. We're very thankful and grateful for that. And the combination of these health protocols and vaccines really allows us to have a very strong safety profile for our ships. We're anxious to come back, Governor, and we thank you again for your support.
Great. All right, Tom Maslam, Disney Cruise Lines.
Governor DeSantis, thank you for your leadership and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. Let's get people back to work. Let's get people back to work. The health situation has changed. Member cruise lines are cruising very successfully outside the United States, proving that with the right protocols, cruising is a very safe and beautiful experience. We still have a significant portion of our Disney Cruise Line employees right here in Central Florida furloughed a year into this. And what most people don't realize, the impact this has on vendors, on business partners, communities, including the folks right here in Port Canaveral. Governor, they're struggling. They're struggling. Let's get people back to work. The health situation has changed. We have proven cruising is successfully. We're the only industry not allowed to operate by the US government. Let's get people back to work. Let's start by treating this industry like any other sector in travel and tourism. Thank you very much.
Great. All right, Rick Sasso, MSC Cruises.
Governor, thank you. I think that we couldn't even express the amount of words of gratitude for what you've done for all of us in Florida and even probably beyond Florida. So thank your team and your office for what you've done. It's extraordinary. I want to put something in context so my brief comments will have a different meaning. Forgive my New York accent. I graduated from Miami Central High School in 1967. I got married in the little church, Flower Church in Coral Gables in 1972, and I've been working in the cruise sector in Florida since 1972. So my blood, my heart, everything about family, Florida, cruising is right here in this room with me. So when I think about MSC is a private company. We are the largest container ship operator in the world, and we're the fourth largest cruise line in the world. We have the youngest fleet, we're growing tremendously. And we've made tremendous investments in Florida, and more to come. And there are things going on that are kind of frustrating because we do need a date certain. I think what you'll hear in this room, we need to know when, because it will take time for us to engage to get things back in order. And June or July is the date, it's July. We need to start that process to get all these businesses back on track. But MSC's example is one that's profound. We took the first few months getting our crew and our passengers home last March. And from that moment on, we engaged our entire organization and every health administration, whether it was city, state, local, federal, pan-Europe, we engaged them to find out what was going to take for us to start cruising again. We launched cruises in August in the Mediterranean. We've had over 55,000 passengers sail with us since then. We have had 0 incidences of an outbreak. The model of what we have put together is one that should be a gold standard. The industry, and just again from my 50 years experience, this industry has never worked so closely together in the last year than we have in the last 50. And it's extraordinary compilation of expertise. But that example we have in Europe, you are safer right now on our Grandiosa than you are going into a local supermarket. We test every guest, COVID test, before they board the ship. They're tested before they leave home. They're tested again when they're on the pier. They're tested again during the cruise. All the crew are tested at least multiple times and checked every day. So the incidence will be almost 0, but never 0. But you are safe to go on a cruise ship today. We just need to get the CDC to now give us that time frame and say, okay, guys, we think you can do it. We know we can do it, but let's do it starting July 1st because we're ready and we've proven it. The statistics are clear. So we're anxious to do that, and our company, MSC, being a global footprint, we're certainly ready for North America and Florida to come back to life again. We're proud to be part of that process with you.
Thank you. Christine Duffy, Carnival Cruise.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you from all of us at Carnival Corporation for your support. As you may know, Carnival Corporation represents nearly 50% of the cruise business with 9 brands, and like my colleagues, we have many of our sister brands that are sailing very successfully around the world. But Carnival Cruise Line, I like to say, is America's cruise line. And we sail from 14 U.S. home ports here in this country, the majority from Florida. And our guests save up all year, many of them, to take that vacation with their family. We sail more family and children. July, the summer is coming. As chair of the U.S. Travel Association, airlines, hotels, resorts, every part of the travel and tourism sector is preparing for summer travel. As you've heard from our colleagues, the protocols that have been put in place already by the cruise industry go above what we see in any other part of travel or entertainment. We have many, many of our guests that drive to their cruise vacation. This beautiful terminal here in Port Canaveral was built for a ship that we just delivered that we are not able to start up in the U.S. We've seen cruise lines that would normally operate out of U.S. home ports having to move their ships offshore to begin operation, where Americans will be able to fly on a plane, get on a ship in another country, take their cruise, and then fly right back. So, at Carnival, we have not made any plans to move our ships out of our U.S. home ports. And I hope that we won't have to do that. But we need some movement, some direction, because that conditional sale order that's been in place since the fall, pre-vaccines, we've heard that distribution, any American that wants a vaccine can have one by the end of May. So I think we're ready, and it is time that we understand and that we can be prepared. As you said, we can't just turn around the next day and start cruising. So we want to be able to have the direction that we need to be ready. Our ships are ready.
And what about your employee situation? What have you had to do over the last year, and would you be able to hire people?
We still have people who are on furlough. We have cut our resources by probably 40%. We have people who want to come back to work. As you've heard from all of the partners here, all of us rely on the supply chain, that many of those companies are small businesses here in the state of Florida. They're not working. So we can bring those jobs back tomorrow, but we need some direction. And thank you again for your support, and all of you, and especially here at the port for Port Canaveral.
Yeah, I mean, if you look like in Florida, the number of people that are being vaccinated on a daily basis, and you project that out, and I think there's going to be more vaccines dumped, higher levels, once we get into April. To say that you can't sail by the time we get to like the end of June, the CDC's basically saying the vaccines don't work then. They're basically anti-vaxxers because it's going to be available for everybody. And I know not 100% are going to take it, and that's their choice, but I mean, this thing will be so widely available, and we're getting close to where that's going to be the case. That'll probably happen in April. So you're going to have that. And so at what basis is you have effective instant testing, you have effective treatments, the monoclonal antibodies, and you have vaccine. So you still can't live, and these industries can't operate even with all of that? I mean, that just doesn't work. And so we're much better off where we are on all this today than we were in October when they did the conditional sale order. But we'll be even better by the time we get to the end of June. It's no question in terms of the availability of all this stuff. So, okay, Michael Bayley, Royal Caribbean.
Thank you, Governor, and I'd like to thank all of my colleagues. Everything that they've said, I completely support and endorse. It's been a devastating year for our industry and our business. We've effectively been shut down for over a year since the no sale order, and for the past 5 months since the CDC issued the conditional sale order, we've had literally no progress. And when we've inquired as to the progress of that conditional sale order, we've been told basically that it is in intergovernmental agency review. And we have been told that on multiple occasions. It's coming, but it's in review. In the meantime, we effectively, pre-COVID, were bringing 4 million tourists a year who sailed on our ships from Florida ports. We were spending approximately $2 billion a year in Florida on supply chain that supplied our ships, whether it be fuel, eggs, water, provisions. We have operations all the way through South Florida, call centers, warehousing, head offices. We effectively shut them. We reduced our workforce by approximately 40%. Those are people who had high-paying jobs who literally were sent home, either on furlough or simply were let go, waiting for our industry to restart. We suspended billions of dollars of capital projects, not only in the United States, but within the Caribbean. And sometimes we forget that the Caribbean are our neighbors, and these communities have been devastated by the lack of tourism going into them. And so all of that has played a critical role in terms of really, damaging the industry and putting people out of work. And to the other comments that my colleagues have made, we rely on thousands of small businesses, whether it's florists, uniform providers, provisioners, designers, architects. Just the suspension of our capital projects effectively means that we shut down all of our relationships with design firms and architects throughout Florida. And so it's been a devastating process. We are a global company. We have 5 cruise brands based around the world. And to a similar situation to my colleagues, we've started operating. We started operating from Singapore in December of last year. We've carried over 50,000 Singaporeans extremely safely, without incident, without any issues at all, working in a very collaborative way with the Singaporean government and the health ministry there. Our brands in Europe have carried people from Germany and throughout Europe, and we've had no issues. We've developed significant technology for contact tracing. We've got protocols in place that we've all worked on as an industry that are incredibly sophisticated and we believe are state-of-the-art. And so we're confused. We're a Florida-based entity. We have a huge business. We carry 9 million, 10 million Americans a year on vacations. They love these vacations. And suddenly, it stopped. And yet we can't get any reliable information from the entity that's closed us down. It's in intergovernmental agency review, month after month after month. It's devastating. We have now started to take our ships because we have to, and we've started to home port them in other locations. We announced that we're opening up in Israel because the Israeli government reached out to us, and we had a collaborative process, and we're starting to cruise from Israel in June. We recently announced that one of our ships will be home porting in Nassau in the Bahamas. We opened it for sale a couple of days ago. Fantastic demand, primarily from our American customers. We announced that we're opening one of our ships and home porting it in Bermuda, and that'll start in June. Exactly the same thing. So we're in this bizarre situation where we're all Americans. We've got huge workforces in America. We buy all of our products in America. We supply our ships from America. Most of our customers are from America, and yet we cannot get any guidance. And so I thank you for your support, and it's wonderful to see, and it's great to be invited here to speak with you today. So thank you.
What does this say about a bureaucracy that can't even get its ducks in a row and just doesn't even care that people are hurting or that people aren't able to work or that people are on furlough? Like, you can't even bring yourself to come to the table and communicate and provide a way forward for people. I mean, it's really an example of poor leadership and poor governance. They should not have the authority to shut this down to begin with, let's just be honest. But to just not have any regard or have no sense of urgency after a year, and as they said, it's not just the people that they employ, you have all these other businesses and workers that are feeding into this. And it's all gonna happen anyways, it's just not gonna happen in the United States or in the state of Florida. I mean, how does that make any sense at all? All right, we have Senator Mayfield.
Thank you, Governor, and I want to thank you for your leadership in putting Florida first and our employees first and citizens first here. Obviously, I think we're preaching to the choir here. We all know what needs to be done. We've all done what needed to be done. It's Washington that we have got to get the message to. My concern is what is next? I mean, we allow the CDC to shut this whole industry down, but what is going to happen next? Let's say another pandemic that they declare as being a pandemic shuts us down. That's the thing that we really need to be starting to worry about, is how easy we let this happen. So one of the things I know from our leadership with President Simpson is we are looking at legislation that once we do get open, that will help the businesses under unemployment. We've all talked about how the unemployment is just skyrocketed, and we are repairing that. So when you do get open back up and you do get employees back, at least your unemployment tax rate will be kept low so that you can pay your employees what they need for your work. But you know, it's like I said, you can't say it enough. We're just preaching to the choir here, and with Governor DeSantis' leadership, going and talking with with our congressional members and our U.S. senators and other states as well, that maybe we can get the CDC to lift this ban because it's just not fair. You know, Florida, the Attorney General said 60% of the embarkments come out of Florida. So it's really just crippling us. So I want to thank you guys. You guys have the answer. You know, Rick, you have a protocol in place on what you're doing. So it's just beyond me why the federal government can't take that protocol and let's apply it to all of our cruise lines here in Florida and get everyone back out there. Listen, my husband and I and our family, we go at least once a year. Once a year we take a cruise. It is the easiest vacation that you can do with family, is to do a cruise. And so, you know, we are looking forward to it opening back up and getting back on that first cruise ship out of here. So thank you, Governor, for your leadership in bringing this together. And hopefully this message will get to Washington that, you know, get off your butts and let's get our industry back to work here because we need the jobs. So thank you.
Great. Senator Wright?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Governor. What a great day today is to get one day closer to being back open. I wanted to thank Admiral Justice Captain Murray for keeping this great asset of the state still alive. These folks have done an amazing job keeping the Port Canaveral alive by moving to cargo and keeping it. We have a big overhead here every month, and they have found ways to keep the doors open as we wait for the cruise line to come back. So I think it's already been said, and Secretary Thibault touched on it already. You know, hotels are open, restaurants are open, bars, lounges, Bike Week that you were at in our district. 600,000 bikers. They're still all walking around and riding their motorcycles. There's no reason that these cruise ships should be sitting empty. And Attorney General Moody, you already have all your witnesses for when we have to go fight. And I like to tell everybody that if we have to choose who to fight for us, she's the winner. And she will do the job. So thank you very much for having me here today.
So on that note, I mean, you've looked at figuring out, okay, how could you vindicate Florida's interest if we can't get any movement here in the near term? And you know, what does it look like?
Well, you know, what is obviously clear is that the orders that we're operating under are based on outdated medical information, and they're untimely. So even when the no sale order that was put back in place last March, and as you said, Governor, at that point, based on what we knew, I think everyone agreed, probably the smartest thing to do. But since that time, we've moved on, and even though that has been lifted, it really hasn't, because they have put in place a new conditional order to sale, which hasn't allowed you to do anything. So we are still effectively in a lockdown. And when you have a government that is working against the interests, the vitality, the success of the citizens that it serves, that is a problem. And historically, you can see how that leads to the demise and destruction of those that they are trying to govern. It is no longer a government of we the people that are putting those leaders in place and supporting it. You cannot have an agency shutting down an entire industry based on outdated, arbitrary, capricious decisions. And so we will take all legal action as necessary. Governor DeSantis, working with your office, basing that on the information that's given to us, not only by the cruise line industry, but those that have been impacted in Florida. As you know, this also affects the fiscal purse of this state. Our tax revenues are affected when our jobs go away and citizens aren't thriving. And so we've examined all of our options. We will continue to do so. And we ask and plead that this leadership get a little bit more like Florida's leadership. In the details, dig in, talk to the people that it's affecting. Get out of the capital, come into Florida, talk to these people like you're doing, Governor. And we expect them to take action swiftly, and if they don't, Florida will follow through.
Great. And I don't know if any of you have, what would you estimate, you know, the total impact in terms of jobs that this, because I mean, obviously all of you have seen it, but then you also do business with other folks. I mean, what's the ballpark? I mean, are we talking about, you know, a few thousand, or is this tens of thousands or 100,000 plus in the state of Florida?
What's hard to quantify is people don't appreciate cruise industry drives people into hotel rooms.
That's right.
So how many people are not able to work in hotels? Hotels have been running 50% occupancy. So now all of the people that work in hotels, all the people that provide transportation, you've been to the airports, the stores are still closed. So it's difficult because we drive a lot of what we'll call indirect spend into the communities where we operate. And you talk to any of the hoteliers in Miami Beach, as an example, they feel it.
But Governor, there was an industry study completed some time ago that calculated that in Florida there was approximately 150,000 people employed because of the cruise industry. And if you think now that the cruise industry has effectively been shut down for the past year, you know, you just apply an 80-20 rule, then probably 80% of that 150,000 people have been unemployed in Florida. I mean, our expenditures in Florida run in the billions. You know, we're a major industry in Florida. So it's effectively shut. And of course, the irony is that it's open increasingly around the world. And we've demonstrated that we can operate using the protocols that we've all worked together to share, using some of the best minds in public health and science to help form these protocols that we've executed in other markets around the world with great success. So it is a mystery.
Governor, let me state the obvious here a little bit. As you know, John knows, we've had regular meetings with the ports since the pandemic started. At the beginning was weekly, and I know some of you probably heard that and were participating in that. At the beginning was PPE. I remember those conversations, right? Now we're beyond that, fortunately. But when you think about what you're hearing here from small businesses, right? When you think about the impacts where you got inventory that you were saying, and you've got uniforms that are sitting there or material that you can't use, right? And all the ripple effects where, for example, today we don't have Port of Palm Beach, but we know, if you know the airport, they're serving Caribbean for the cruise industry that goes there, right? So there's that ripple there that's not even here at the table today. You know, the obvious thing here, Governor, is you have an agency that's been kicking the can. That's probably the soundbite that's going to be used here, but you're kicking the can, that they just don't want to address it. And I think you've heard consistently the theme here is frustration. Right? If I want to put a word to it, it's frustration. You know, you've been proactive. The industry's been extremely proactive. So they're ready to go. They're ready to sit down with the CDC, Governor. So I think perhaps, you know, this agency's been here to support you, obviously, during this pandemic. If you want us to continue to help support, we're here to do that, because I think there's a number of actions we can do just to help stop kicking the can.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's, I think you guys kind of pointed out, but you have the people that would work like for individual companies here, important jobs, and then all the different other businesses that you will do direct business with that provide you services. Jose, Carlos, all these other things, very important, a lot of employees, and then these indirect, where yes, I mean, people fly into Orlando, they'll go to dinner, they'll stay, and then they'll drive over here, you know, the next day and get on the ship. And so that has that ripple effect, and we see that, and obviously our airports and things like that. So it's a big deal, and I just, you know, I look at it and say, I mean, just think we're doing so much better than the country, 6.2 versus 4.7 on the unemployment, and yet we're the most crippled by what they're doing with this national cruise lockdown. And so if we get liberated from that, you know, you're going to be able to see, you know, maybe tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 more people end up going back to work across all these various industries and companies that are affected by this. That's a huge deal. I mean, that is affecting a lot of lives. That's people putting food on the table, reducing anxiety, all these different things. And, you know, you have the decency to provide some firm guidance and provide an answer. And if you're not going to be willing to green light this, then you need to explain why everywhere else in the world can do it and why Americans are going to be doing it and all this other stuff. And some of this thing, I think, you got to be in touch with reality. You got to get out of your cubicle and you got to actually see how the world's actually operating. And, you know, there's some people that maybe they're thinking like that, you know, walking into a restaurant is like the most dangerous thing in the world. And they've said that in the past. But then you look at places that if people are open and doing things, and it hasn't panned out the way they said. And so I think the similar thing here, they're acting like the cruise ships are going to be this massive problem when we already know they're not, because they're doing it in other places. And that's kind of the best. You can have your model, you can have your whatever you surmise, but the observed experience is the most powerful. And if you're doing it and you're doing it without a hitch in other places, then you need to be able to do it here in the United States. And so,
Governor, if I can,
yep.
We've been doing it without vaccines.
Yeah.
You know, this is, you know, everything has changed because of the vaccines. I mean, I got my first shot a couple of weeks ago. I felt incredibly empowered. I think everybody does. And we see it in the bookings for our future cruises.
Yeah.
And we ask our customers, have you been vaccinated? Over 60% have been vaccinated. And they're happy as happy could be. You know, they're ready to go. So, you know, we've been operating safely globally without vaccine, and now vaccines have come into this, and we know now in America and in Florida there's been a huge success. So why are we waiting?
Governor, you see here 5 of the leading cruise lines in the world. We are united to support you in this effort to take the cruise industry forward. We just asked Dr. Walensky from the CDC to come and have a dialogue with us.
Right.
That's our only request. We love the leadership that you have, and I would welcome for her to talk with you, to talk with us, to get this dialogue moving immediately.
Absolutely. And I think what you'll see too is, in Florida, our seniors, I think they were very prudent, but many of them were still living their lives. I mean, you look at some of these places, Central Florida, the villages, they had the record golf rounds during COVID because people wanted to be active, and so they didn't do some of the real risky, but they did do a lot of stuff. So it's not like every senior's just been huddled up the whole time, although some may have been isolating a lot. But now with the vaccine and everything, people, there's pent-up demand. And it's not just Florida, it's other places. There's a lot of pent-up demand for people to be able to do things because they've deferred some of this activity in terms of doing a vacation or doing travel. And you see kind of how it's affected different parts of our state unevenly in some respects. I mean, the Panhandle, they had the best summer they ever had because people are driving from all these states converging there, and it was like it was a huge boom. Well, Central Florida, I mean, limited theme parks. Obviously, they took them a while for them to get open. The convention stuff, the cruise, and so you have more unemployment. Miami, even though a lot of Miami is booming. Thank you very much on that one. But it's booming. People are buying property and everything. But you have higher unemployment because of this no sale order. There's no question that that's had a huge impact. So now is the time, and look, if there's a valid reason for this, then tell me. But they're clearly, to me at this point, this has outlived its usefulness, and you always got to be willing to look at the data, and you got to be willing to reverse course when the data suggests you need to. I mean, for example, I did this at the beginning. Everyone was saying you have to stop the elective procedures because we need hospital space and PPE. And so everyone in the country did this, every state. So we did it. And 3 weeks later, I'm like, the hospitals are half empty. We're getting more PPE. So we put them back in and said, you know what, the hospitals, you guys make these decisions. You know how to manage your patient load. You know how to manage the PPE and all this stuff. And you know what? They did a great job on it for the whole pandemic. And so those are things you do. If one of these policies isn't necessary or you reverse course. So that's what we're looking for here. And I think that there's a lot of livelihoods that depend on this. And I think the frustrating thing is there's not a lot of obvious recourse. They can just let it sit in the interagency, and we just kind of gotta sit here. And maybe we don't just sit here forever with the Attorney General, but certainly for now's the time. They need to plan. They need to be able to get their ducks in a row. But I'm confident there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to do this. People want to be active. They want to resume kind of their normal activities. And so this has a potentially to be a big positive impact on our state. And you're going to put a lot of people back to work. And I think you guys are going to get a lot of interest to want to be doing this. Any other issues you think that we need to discuss?
Just a further comment, because independently and as a group, we have created the most incredible protocols to get back to work. And I think it's kind of like a cure for the anxiety and the risk. It's not a cure for COVID, but it's a cure for the anxiety and the risk. And I think we've created a gold standard for the travel sector that people should look what we've done and say, maybe we ought to do that too. And I think you have created the gold standard for states. So I think we're all harmonized in that regard, that we have put this thing to the task. We have spent a year now making sure we get to this place. We need to get to the next place.
That's right. No. Anything else? Just say, you talk to people who come down Florida who like maybe do business here, and then they go do business in like these lockdown states, and it's like a different country almost. You know, it's just, it's so, but I mean, the thing is though, it's like we have our own little federally imposed lockdown with what they've done with the cruise. I mean, this is empty. And it's not because of us at the state, it's because of the federal government. But this is kind of, it's really out of place for Florida because we have so many other things, you know, they're doing. You know, there'll be people, I've talked to people in some of these states, they'll be doing business with somebody in their state, like a lockdown state. But instead of like doing like a business dinner in like Chicago, they will fly to Florida, they will meet, they will have dinner, they'll discuss the business, make a deal, and then they'll both fly back to the same state separately. I mean, that's kind of what's going on here. It's just, it's really remarkable. So, you know, we've led the way on a lot of this stuff. Our hands have been tied with this industry, but man, you know, just think about how much more of a push we're going to be able to get, you know, once this is lifted. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be very happy. I mean, you know, you were saying, someone was saying that you know, are we going to, cruisers going to go? The employees are asking. They want to know when they can get back because they hear. You know, I've been talking about this for, you know, mentioned this the last month or two, saying we need to do this. And so people are, I think they're chomping at the bit. I mean, they've been on furlough for a long time. It's been a very difficult year through no fault of their own. So this will provide a lot of relief to a lot of Floridians. And look, I think these are good jobs, but I mean, you know, I doubt very many of these employees have the luxury of just not doing anything indefinitely. You know, they got to work, they got to put food on the table. I mean, that's just the nature of what we're dealing with here. So please, CDC, listen to those voices, listen to those people. Who are really, you know, in Florida, you know, the service economy is kind of the backbone of our state. I mean, we're so tourism dependent. You know, these are folks that really make Florida what it is, and they need to have the ability to go back. And I think if they do, this state's going to boom very quickly. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be very happy. So I think we're all united in saying, let's get a path forward. It should not be any later than the end of June. That is totally reasonable. And the COVID thing is going to be, look, the only way it won't be in great shape is if you don't think the vaccines work. I mean, that's the only way at this point you could say, fast forwarding a few months into the future, that somehow you think that this is not going to be even better than it is now. And it's gone down everywhere in the country, almost everywhere, you know, over the last month and a half. And if you look at the nursing homes, man, it's totally crashed in the nursing homes because those are the places we were vaccinating first. And so there's a lot of encouraging things, and we should embrace that and really want to get ahead of it. So thanks, everybody. We look forward to coming back, maybe when the ship does the maiden voyage. Maybe we'll be able to do something. So. All right. Does anyone have any questions for anybody up here? So as we said, Attorney General and I have been discussing what potential options we may have on the legal side. But at the same time, I mean, I think we are all in agreement. Look, let's just appeal to the CDC. Let's try to get the guidance without having to go down that road. But I mean, we obviously at some point are gonna need a way forward. And so we're willing to work with them. We want to work with them. We want to be able to get them to get to yes. But we obviously are going to keep our options open for the future. Yes, ma'am.
Forgive me, I'm going to shout so that you can hear. But Governor, have you reached out to the Biden administration or the CDC to get this no-sale order lifted, and are you hopeful that it might be lifted by summer?
So this has been something we've been working on since last summer, and I think I spoke with some of you about it then. We thought we had a path to get it lifted by the end of last year. Obviously, that didn't happen, and the previous administration was supportive of doing it. The CDC, though, was not, and so I think what we've seen is kind of a continuation of that. And look, all we're saying is we really want to be able to go forward. It's not just Florida, even though we're the most impacted. Alaska has appealed. There was a letter written from the 2 senators from Alaska, as well as our 2 U.S. senators, to the CDC requesting, or actually maybe even to the COVID task force or whatever they're calling it now, asking for this. I've been involved with other governors across the country appealing that we can find a way forward here. And so the thing is we obviously wish we were already sailing at this point, but I know they have stuff. They're going to be ready to go, if we can just get all this squared away for the end of June. The summer is going to be huge. But if we let it drag on, then they're going to have to go to their guests, the employees, and it's just going to be a total disaster. So let's get it done now in the near future. Give them time to ramp up their operations, and let's put places like this to use, and let's put people back to work.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I'm Nick Pena with Cruise Planners, and I want to bring to light a segment that hasn't been mentioned today, which is the travel advisors.
That's right.
I am part of thousands of franchisees from Cruise Planners, which is a Florida-based company, and we're hurting.
Yeah.
I had to make tough decisions. In 2014, I opened my business out of the blue, and to great success. But in the last year, I had to make the decision to keep the business open or pack my home in Miami and come to live with family here in Central Florida in order to survive. And I see no end in sight. As an agent that specializes in cruises, my customers are calling me now almost every day. I saw the commercial, I saw the news, and then I have to tell them, well, they're not sailing for the United States. They're still buying it. They're calling me every day saying, hey, we got the shots, we're ready to go, what can you do for us? And I have nothing to tell them, and it's very frustrating.
So if they lifted this no sale order, though, you would be able to be back in action and get on your feet again? You'll be ready? Yeah. Good. Yes?
Can you say if you were the Attorney General started to process some legal action against the government, or when would you start doing that?
Well, there's not been anything filed. I think, look, it would be malpractice for us not to look at all available options to vindicate the interests of the state. We are not announcing any action at this time because we don't believe it should be necessary. And we think that we have a pathway forward, especially given the track record of the industry in other countries, and especially given the fact that if you keep this no sale order in place, Americans are still going to be taking cruises. They're just going to be taking them from the Bahamas or Bermuda or something. And look, those are nice places, don't get me wrong. But I want them sailing from Florida. I mean, come on, it's like, let's do that. So we know all that. That's the direction it's all going. So let's get to a good place. But I also think it's important. This is just me, and they may agree or not agree. But if you're going to issue guidance, you can't do so much guidance where it paralyzes any way to operate. And we've seen that in some other instances, some of the school guidance, some of this other stuff. You got to have a little bit of a realistic view on this. And quite frankly, they know more about how their operations work than an agency would. And I think they're going to be in a situation where they've already shown in other countries it can work well. And so they have an opportunity to follow that framework and provide an enjoyable experience. And just think about it. If you're in business here, you want to provide an experience so people like it and they tell their friends and that they come. You have more incentive to get it right than anybody does, because your viability is really at stake. And I mean, because they do stuff for safety apart from COVID to make sure that their guests have a safe experience. And you got to do that. Otherwise, it's not good for business. So but I think we have to protect the state's interest. But I think right now the state's interest, can be vindicated by appealing to the agency. Let's get a path forward here. And how soon? I mean, if they said starting, in late June, you could go forward. I mean, would you be able to start hiring people in the near term? So you'd be able to do it pretty quickly? Yeah, you would be able to as well? And then you guys would be able to start bringing people back.
Ships are here under the conditional sale order, ready. We need the time to be able to sail. So if we want to sail in June, we need to have some movement in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, right. Good. Yep.
Yeah, Governor,
Yeah, I think it'll be good. And I think what we're going to do is, so it'll be 18 and older. As we start to get more supply, we'll see what the demand is. Because, right now, we did the age, we did it I think it was a pretty good thing in terms of when we went to 60, when we went to 50, and now 40 on Monday, we did it to where it never got overwhelmed. When the demand softened, we did it, and it's been largely smooth in terms of that. You didn't see all the systems crashing or whatever or anything like that. And so I think going to all adults, you're going to see obviously some demand for that, but my sense is that'll kind of be a continuation of what we're doing. I don't think the demand's going to be overwhelming. As we start to get more vaccine, if you start to see a surplus of vaccine, we'll probably go to companies and say, hey, if you guys want stuff for your workforce, maybe we'll just send it directly to you, and then you can knock out thousands of people on site so that people don't have to worry about going to CVS or some of that stuff. So there's a lot we may be able to do as the vaccine production increases, but we did get more. We didn't think we were going to get J&J. We got 42,000. We are going to get J&J again next week. Now, not huge amount, but we're going to get similar. That's going to pick up. We got more Pfizer coming for next week than we had this week, and I think the Moderna will probably pop at some point in April as well. So we're going to, and I said this, about 6 weeks ago. I was like, I know, because we're seniors first, which was the right strategy because they're the most vulnerable, and we're going to hit 3.5 million seniors. We probably have already done that with the delayed reporting, but we're very close to that. And the demand was very intense at the beginning. The demand started to get a little bit of an equilibrium after about 6 weeks, and it was pretty steady. But then I said, looking at the lower age groups, the demand is less there. So as the supply really ramps up, you are going to go from, January 4th, within 2 minutes, 10,000 appointments taken in these places, to you're going to have to do some marketing to let people know that this is here. Oh, yeah. And that will definitely happen sometime in April. And so there's going to be vaccine on the shelves, I think, based on the current trends. And you're going to be able to tell people, hey, this is good, take it. But if they want it, they are going to be able to get it. I'm pretty confident of that. So that obviously, when you have a lot of employees, like in Central Florida at some of these really big enterprises, that gives them the ability to be able to do that. But as much as we want to provide this, we don't believe in mandating it for anybody. And we also don't believe in you having to show any type of vaccine passport to participate in society. That would have some significant unintended consequences, I think. And it basically penalizes, if certain communities have more vaccine hesitancy, then it penalizes them from being able to participate in society. So there's a lot of problems with that. So available for all starting April 5th. But mandated for none, and certainly not needing to show that to be able to participate in society. But I do think I want to thank a lot of people. When we did Seniors First, we were the first state in the country to do Seniors First. We were the first state to do nursing home residents because we basically went ahead of CVS and Walgreens and did 105 facilities the first week. CVS and Walgreens came online and they did a few thousand. We did another 1,400 in Florida. We had hospitals vaccinating people throughout this whole time. The county health departments have vaccinated people. We've had drive-through sites like at the Villages and Miami-Dade Hard Rock. We've had working with churches. I think we've done about 80,000 shots with faith community, mostly African American churches. We started that at the beginning of January. We were the first state in the country to partner with churches, and even the Biden administration has asked Jared Moskowitz to brief other states about that, and he's done that, about how we were able to do those efforts. We've taken it to, I think, almost 25 or 30 senior 55 and up communities across the state. Sola Vida in Central Florida. We did some on the east coast of Southeast Florida. We did a bunch of them. We did Brevard with Debbie. We were in St. Lucie. We've done a lot on the west coast of Florida been very successful. We're over 5,000 seniors in our homebound senior program, where we actually send people to their homes for seniors who can't get out to be able to vaccinate them. And we've set up a bunch of sites in underserved communities. And so the result is, this massive state. We have seniors everywhere. I mean, I didn't like they're all in Delray Beach. I mean, they're everywhere. And that just, it's logistically a little bit more difficult, the larger the footprint and the number of people. So a massive state across 2 time zones, a whole bunch of diverse communities, very huge elderly population. We'll end up hitting 75% of seniors. We may have already hit it with the delayed reporting, but then we'll report that very soon. 3.5 million we'll report very soon of seniors, and that was really the number one mission. And it wasn't easy. We had a whole bunch of different. And then we had the pharmacies that have done all this. We've got. I think we're getting close to 2,000 pharmacy locations between CVS, Publix, Walgreens, Sam's Club, Walmart, and Winn-Dixie across, and Navarro Pharmacy in Miami-Dade County across the entire state. That's a huge, huge thing. And when you think about it, if you're like 35, you can just go to CVS and you can get the shot. We want to get it in every CVS. We're going to work on that. We will probably announce an expansion of CVS next week because we're getting additional vaccine. But that's a huge, huge thing to have this really strong retail footprint. So we believe with all these distribution mechanisms that we've been able to establish and the increasing in the vaccine, by the time we get to June, I mean, if you haven't been vaccinated, it's because you have made the choice not to be vaccinated. There's not going to be the lines. I mean, remember, we had 179,000 shots the first week, and I had a lot of people that wanted it. And then even when we started to get a little bit more, we were getting about 250,000 initial doses a week. Well, I had millions of seniors that wanted it, so it was hard to get appointments, and it took some time to work through that queue. Now that's not going to be the issue, and so it kind of plays into everything here. We've made great strides. The treatments, nobody talks about the monoclonal antibodies. They work. If you're somebody that's at risk and you get infected, talk to your physician about getting that, because if you get it early, the success rate is fantastic. It's not really advertised as much because the companies don't need to, because they've already sold all the product. But it is something that's really, really important. And then they have the ability to do these instant tests and these rapid tests to be able to identify this. And then, of course, with the vaccine. So I just remember I think some of you may have been there, but we had a meeting with Mike Pence a year ago, probably about second week of March. We were down in March 8th, and where were we? Fort Lauderdale for that one, right? So we're in Fort Lauderdale. Like, if you, just to even think about going back at that time, like, so little that we really understood. We had nothing in terms of certainly no proven treatment, obviously no vaccination, very difficult to even test because you're literally taking it to a lab, shipping it somewhere, and there's a big delay. And so it was like, man, so now where we're at now, we understand so much more. We've got the ability to test for it instantly or virtually instantly. We have treatments, vaccines, and everything. And so if you can't get to yes under those circumstances, then you just don't want to get to yes. So we look forward to coming. I want to see these ships sailing. It'll be a great comeback, I think, for a lot of people that work in this industry, and it'll be part of the Florida comeback. The cruises and the flights are the last two pieces of the puzzle for us in terms of having flights from around the world come back into Florida to also boost our tourism industry, and hopefully that's coming soon as well. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.